Welcome to Sweeping the Country. One more time, my co-host, Mr. Jimmy Carter. He is here today with an icon, the Godfather of Soul, Jimmy.
The Godfather of Soul, the hardest working man in show business, soul brother number one, Mr. Dynamite, Mr. Please Please Me, one of the first 10 inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Mr. James Joseph Brown.
Wow. I mean, what year was
what
this?
a weird situation with him.
Okay.
I thought he was cool in the 60s.
Yeah.
And remember, I am from the highly segregated city of Montgomery, Alabama.
Yes.
We had a all-black university called Alabama State University.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go over there on certain nights in the 60s in my early teens and go to stand on top of cars and watch the pay-per-views of Muhammad Ali.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I would be, when I got to be a teenager, James Brown would play generally every Thanksgiving in Montgomery at the Garrett Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
It was generally an all-black attended event. He was the Godfather of Soul. It was his predominant audience. But I liked black music.
Okay.
I loved all kinds of R&B and soul, from Sam and Dave to Otis Redding to everything in between. I loved that music.
Yeah, as did I.
And I just loved it. So I would sneak over, and usually a friend of mine would go with me, and we would go, as the concert had already started, to the Garrett Coliseum. And the only other white faces you'd see in that show were the occasional police officer.
Wow.
In many cases, the black police officers in the town were working that event.
Yeah.
And so I would get in, and I don't ever remember paying. I remember it was sold out.
Yeah.
So at this point, we would go, the doors would be open, third of the halfway through the concert or whatever.
Yeah.
So we just sneaked in. And man, to see him up there, get up off that thing.
Yeah.
And he was so, with that big band, with the horn section, with the groove, all these people, from Prince to Lenny Kravitz to all those people, they learned whatever they learned in the beginning was a root of James Brown.
I just remember the energy level, and I never went to a show. We lost him in 06. I think it was 06. But I never went to any of the shows, but I've gone to shows where they're high energy, but not that level high energy.
No, not that high energy. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
The James Brown and the Famous Flames. And oh my God, it was such a great band. And he didn't tolerate anything other than complete excellence. He was a taskmaster. Now, some of you might have seen the movie that Mick Jagger helped produce.
Yeah.
There was a story of James Brown. Some of that story was true.
Yeah.
There are definitely warts on the subject of James Brown, on him.
Sure.
But when I had my first contact with him as an adult, as someone who had, some business to be taken care of with him, I met him backstage at an event for a guy named John R.
Okay.
John Richburg, was a disc jockey at WLAC Radio. It was the radio station that was to soul music what WSM was to country music.
Okay.
They broke groups like Etta James and James Brown and B.B. King and a lot of these people to a national audience because it was at 1510 a.m. It was a clear channel, and everybody in the Northeast got that signal at night. So all these, everybody, white and black, that wanted to, was scanning the dials of AM radio at night, which is what we did, teenagers. On the upper end of the dial, you had 1510 WLAC, and then at the other end of the dial for country, you had 650 WSM, and in the middle, there was WWL at 87 and WLS at 89. So you had a lot of things in between, but you could hear those stations out in the backwoods. The people would listen to the Opry and WSM, and people would listen to John R.'s show, and then there was 2 or 3 others that escape me right this minute, very famous men too, that did these shows. A number of them thought a lot of these guys were black, but they were indeed white.
Fascinating.
At a white-owned radio station, WLAC, but they gave a lot of breaks to people, and they would come to the station in Nashville. Both stations were in Nashville, and they would come in and make personal appearances. So John R. was having a fundraiser because he had had cancer and run up a bunch of bills. So B.B. King came, James Brown came, all these people came to do a benefit at the Opry House.
How great is that?
So I've been introduced. James Brown was in a dressing room. I don't know who I thought I was, but I wanted to introduce myself to him.
Yeah.
And did, and told him about other concerts I'd seen in Montgomery and all that. So I was one of the producers of the show that night. So number one thing he wanted to do was he wanted to meet. He said he loved Roy Acuff. He grew up listening to Roy Acuff.
Fascinating. That blows my mind.
Well, I can arrange that. Would you like to meet him? He said, oh, he was, yes.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's go. Come on. So he followed me, and his wife, Adrienne, followed me down the hall of the Opry. We run immediately into Charlie Daniels.
Oh, my God.
He knows Charlie Daniels because Charlie Daniels had invited James for years to come to the volunteer jam. So he said, Jimmy, what are you doing with James? I said, I'm taking him to meet his musical hero, Roy Acuff. And he said, let me get my guitar. So he got his guitar, and off we head to Roy Acuff's dressing room. And,
oh my God.
And Acuff had no idea who James Brown was.
Fascinating.
At all. But James Brown knew who Roy Acuff was.
Yeah.
And so Charlie started playing, and they did From the Great Atlantic Ocean to the Wide Pacific Shore.
Oh, my
God.
The
Wabash Cannonball.
Oh, my God.
And then they did something else and something else. Now, I had no recording device with me.
Yeah.
I did have my camera, and I've taken some pictures. I have some still pictures of that moment that James Brown and whoever else was in there with Charlie Daniels and Roy Acuff and his boys singing Wabash Cannonball. It was a memory I'll never forget.
Hey, before we move on, people can go see those pictures. Where do they go? AskJimmyCarter.com?
I think I've posted them on AskJimmyCarter.com, and if I hadn't, I will do them by the time this comes out.
Yeah, they're great. I've seen them.
I've seen
them. I mean, I've seen the photo of the three of you standing there. And
it's really cool. So anyway, later on, at some other time, I do an interview, and I tell him about, again, all the stuff like that. And he always referred to me as Jimmy. That's how he said, here comes Jimmy. Oh, and one thing, too. He had these two guys helping him get his boots off.
Yeah.
After some rehearsal. I said, what in the world? He said, they're taking my boots off. And I said, you need a boot jack. And he said, what's a boot jack? And I said, a boot jack is this little piece of wood. You put your heel in it,
right,
and you stand on it, and you lift it off, and your boots magically come off. He said, whoa, I never heard of them boot jack. I said, you know what? I'm going home and get you my boot jack. I drove all the way to Brentwood, 30 minutes, and all the way back to the Opry House and brought him my boot jack. Well, he tried it, and he thought I'd just given him a car because he normally had to have two men take the boots off.
Yeah.
So he was really thrilled. I got a really nice letter from his wife, Adrienne, about that.
Oh,
now,
Jimmy.
James was a juvenile delinquent as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up to be, I think he had some issues with women, and he had multiple ladies that he got pregnant and stuff like that over the years, but he was way past the juvenile delinquency thing. He was one of the most famous humans in the world.
Indeed.
I mean, because he played Africa and every other place. Okay. One of the first things James ever showed me, he got his billfold out and showed me his black Republican donator card.
Wow.
He was a stone cold Republican.
Whoa.
This was like in the 1980s. He was all about being a Republican. Very proud of that. Now, after all this stuff, and I see him in New York months later, and he's got this big fur coat on and Acuff entourage.
Oh, yeah, that was his
coming
deal.
out of the New York Hilton.
Yep.
I'm walking down Broadway. I see him, and I go, James, because nobody else is out there. It's cold. Right. And he went, Jimmy. He was so thrilled to see me, and we then saw and got a hug and all that stuff. And then I never saw him again.
Wow.
Now, the next thing I know is a couple of years later, he's involved with an arrest in Augusta and all this stuff. The things he told me of reasons that led up to this. When we were doing our interview, not on camera, but just sitting there talking and being friends, he told me at one point he had all his teeth taken out because he had no dental care as a kid.
Wow.
He was poorer than dirt. So no dental care, you're not going to have good adult teeth.
Right.
And because he had such rotting out teeth, he had them all taken out. He had totally plates. That's why his mouth, if you see his teeth are so perfect,
They are
those
perfect.
are false teeth.
And they're very
Now,
white. Yeah.
he wore terrible shoes that ate in on his feet, and he had bad ingrown toenails.
Oh man.
He had several of those toenails were removed and surgically. I am told that is the worst pain that you could ever have.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is having your toenails removed. Had to have your toenails removed. So he got on some type of Oxycontin or something, the equivalent, after the toe surgery. So he had such bad ongoing pain.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that's how he got on dope. He was not on recreational dope. He was on pharmaceutical dope.
Wow.
And so much to get over that pain between the teeth and the toes, that led him down the road that got him arrested, that got him in prison, and, really besmirched his name. And he never was able to clean it up.
What a misinterpretation. I mean, you think about his reputation, right? He passed in 06. Yeah. So he, and that was what, 18 years ago, 17 years ago. People don't think about that. They just think, oh, he was on drugs, right? You think that. But that's a fascinating...
And I don't know how many people he told that to, really. I mean, because he had everybody... He was a king.
Yeah.
And he was treated like a king by his people that worked for him. And with me, he was talking ultimately like a friend.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had that many friends that he could just talk to in a way that we talk on this interview.
Yeah.
You're going to hear him. He spills it out there, and he's very sincere. And it was a special... I caught him in a special time in his life. James Brown. This is from... I could look up the exact date, but it was sometime in the mid to late 80s. Here he is, James Brown. Hit me.
How you doing, James?
I'm all right, Jimmy.
You're the hardest working man in show business still.
Thank you very, very much. It sounds good coming from you, and I love the conversation we had a little earlier tonight, talking about the good things, talking about show business and talking about the real songs, and I liked all the things you said. Say them again.
The music really hasn't changed that much since you started, has it, for you?
Well, my music hasn't changed. I refuse to let it change because it's like a two-button blazer. They never change. People just get further into it. Remember, we got to convert about another 300 million people in America, and then we're going out and convert about another billion throughout the world somewhere, because we're playing soul music, and soul is us. And I think the country music is getting more deep in the soul openly. Country's always been soul. There's gospel, and the soul of jazz. So just you do what you do, and you do it best, like we talked earlier. And if you become identified with your style and stay with it, don't chicken out, then the people will realize it.
Are you still trying to get a message across in your music?
Yeah.
And what is that message now in 1985?
Same as it was then. At that time, I might have come a little abrupt and said, we're fighting for respect and fighting for opportunity. But opportunity and respect on give you the chance to express the love that you have from yourself. It's all about love anyway. Whatever you do is about love, and you sometimes get angry because you can't express love. But that's what it's about.
When you started out in Georgia as a young boy, what did you want? I mean, did you want money, or did you just want to go out there and entertain? I mean, what were your original goals?
I wanted to eat, E-A-T, and I wanted some nice clothes. And I wanted to further my education, which I didn't get a chance to do. And then later on, I found that I had gotten a lot of things I needed. So then I want to see other people get opportunity. I fought for so many people because I know that most of the people that I knew were doing bad because they inherited it, not because they did it themselves. They inherited rough times. And with an education, with pride, self-pride, they could do a lot of things. I was lucky. God gave me the energy and gave me the blessings of wanting to do, having a talent to sell. And out of all the things, I could have played professional baseball. I had a chance. I had 3 professional fights, boxing, but singing was longevity. Then I was a junior delinquent, so singing was easier for me. I admit that I started in the church singing gospel, and then I formed a band. But you know, I can go back to the end of the songs I sang. Excuse me. And I can sing almost every song I sing on the stage in church. I'm very religious. Not trying to impress nobody, because I talk to God first for myself. Then I ask the blessings for my family and other people. So I'm not trying to tell you I'm the most religious man in the world, but I'm religious from my heart, what I do. With my talk I have with God, I just feel I prayed the day before I got you and asked for the energy, and that we're on the stage tonight.
Well, let's talk about that a minute then. Some of the acts of today can't say they have a clean show. Do you really pass judgment on them, or do you just think it's their thing?
I don't approve of it. I don't approve of nothing dirty on the stage. I don't approve of nothing dirty, period, but I don't, definitely nothing dirty on the stage. If you want to destroy yourself, then you should destroy yourself by yourself. Don't come and spread it among other people. I've always said that. I can go back to some entertainers years back. I was working at Flamingo, and a good friend of mine, this is when comedian was using words, you know, and I don't want to call his name because I don't want to down him. But he was one of the big ones, and he used profanity on my show. I only used one of the letters out the Bible, you know, but he didn't use it right. He used damn, but he didn't use it the way I wanted to use it, because the way he used it was another kind of way. And I went and told the owner, I said, you know, not the owner, but the general manager, I said, first I told him, I said, if you use profanity again, I'm going to see can I get you fired, because I'm not going to be on the show with it. So he did it again, and I told the general manager, if he stayed and do that, then I'm going to leave. I said, I'm not trying to pull rank. I said, but this man intended not to, he showed me going to do that. So he dismissed him. And then over the years, I have denounced a lot of people, and every time I come down on the act, they get rid of him. I'm going to do a family show as long as I live. You know, to be such a right winger and be so straight, so it's, I don't know, sometimes it's not in, but I tell you one thing, it's in with God, it's in with humanity. My wife tells me sometimes, she said, you talk about humanity in the country all night long, but it don't talk so long sometimes.
But America's been good to you.
Yes, very, very good. The people have been, America's been good, but the world has been good. See, I just can't lay and nail down America and say it's been the only thing. It's been good to me throughout the world. It's been good to me, Eastern Europe, Germany, France, England, Belgium, Africa, Australia, all of South America, from Rio de Janeiro, Peru, Bogota, Venezuela, the Orient, Japan, Okinawa. I look forward to going to China, Russia.
Well, you've had it all, James. What do you want now? I mean,
what I want to spread it.
Still? Haven't you spread it already?
About less than a point, less than 10% of a tenth. There's a lot of people out there. And you know, like I say, right messages don't sink as fast as dirt. So we got to keep on convincing more people to go right. You know, this whole music set today, unless you get the senior musicians, this young set, they're going on the wrong way and don't even know they're going the wrong way. So we got to have some role models out there. I mean, you had a lot of them out there tonight. The Yank Ballads, the Rupert Thomas, the Charlotte Daniels. We saw the grandfather, the king of country tonight to me, Mr. Roy Acuff. I felt good seeing him. I've never seen him do a dirty show. I don't think it makes sense. I saw Brother Charlotte Daniels out there. I've never seen him do a dirty show. Don't make sense. But the young kids of the day, from the comedian, I don't know what the comedian's going to do. They got to, I guess they got to almost go and come back again.
You like Eddie Murphy?
You going to put it on me? I like Eddie Murphy. He's a good, clean kid. I didn't like some of the things he did.
All right, Prince.
I like the first part of his show. I don't like the last part.
Is Prince copied James Brown?
He copied some things, but he didn't copy the end of his show from me. That's the one thing I don't approve of. And I talked to his manager, which is a young kid used to work for me, Alan Leeds, and I told him to get him to turn around. But they say he's doing better than he used to do. Maybe he didn't know any better, and maybe just need more role models.
Are there any James Brown-like singers, entertainers out there on the horizon that are young that you've seen that are coming up like you? Would you, if Prince cleaned up his act, would you be proud to say that he is a lot like a younger James Brown?
I'm proud to say he got the guts to try today. but I'm not proud of what it has become. I don't think sometimes it's all him. Sometimes somebody might tell him to be this way. And could he be doing what somebody's telling him to do? But one thing about it, the people that are telling you to do it don't want you to do it for their kids. You know? I fully endorse one young fellow, even though he had a lot of problems on the last tour. But I endorse Michael. But one thing about Michael, he's clean, clean, clean.
What do you think about Michael? You watched him come up. Why is he so successful?
Number one, because he's good. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. Michael, sometimes it's better to be a little boy than to be an old dirty man.
Do you ever wish you could go back and be his age, knowing what you know now?
Oh, no.
You wouldn't want to do it over again?
I would have a beautiful and intelligent wife like I got now. I'm fine. I'm very happy. I was in France about a year and a half ago, and we did 1,003,000 people, the biggest crowd to ever see a show in history. If I had been a kid, I couldn't have seen that show. It took a lot of history to see that. I had people from all parts of Africa, Cameroon, Dakar, Senegal, Nigeria, Niger. I had people from France, England, Germany. I had from the Arabic countries, Jerusalem, Israeli people. I had the German people, and naturally the French people, some of the warmest people in the world, Oriental people from China, Japan, Okinawa, Taiwan, and the Latin people from all over the Latin countries, you know, Bogota, Venezuela, Rio de Janeiro, all the places. And I felt very proud. And the only way you can do that had to be around a while. It's like Kraft say, if you're gonna make mayonnaise, you got to make some eggs.
The great James Brown, a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame. Gosh. Mr. Please, Please Me. Oh, I say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Just so many. Papa's Got a Brand New Mag. Yeah. Cold Sweat. I Got You. It's a Man's World. Please, Please, Please. James and the Fabulous Flames with Bobby Bird. And he died on Christmas Day. Oof. And when I woke up that Christmas, maybe somebody even woke me up that morning, but I came in and used part of this interview and had some other footage. Mm-hmm. And I was on TV that morning at 5:30 or so. Wow. Because I owed it to James Brown to give him a good send-off on Christmas Day of the year 2006. I'll never forget it. I went into work that morning on television, and every half hour I did the report on James Brown dying.
You know, I can hear the emotion in your voice. I'm sure everybody listening can hear that. But when you listen to the interview, and I find, you know, he opens up. You know, sometimes you get those interviews where people are raw, right? And they divulge who they really are, and it felt like that he needed somebody to talk to in that interview, and you were that person, and I find that fascinating, and I understand the emotion. And God, Jimmy, I mean, that is
there's the white black
gold,
thing going on too. I mean, I'm a child of the 50s actually, and raised in a town that was one of the ground zero of the civil rights movement.
Yeah, I know the involvement with your dad and all that.
With Rosa Parks taking the same bus that I used to ride on.
That's crazy.
Except I'd ride in the front and she rode in the back.
That's crazy.
The Cloverdale bus. I can see it right now. Yeah. And then someone who was such a figure in the black community, James Brown, for me as a white kid, to go up to him and express how much I really was in awe of his music, which was not a popular thing to do if you were a white kid.
Not at the time, no.
And even later in the 80s, a lot of people just didn't understand that culture and where he came from. And I liked it because I understood the culture.
Sure.
Because I was raised around it. And I think he was happy that some white kid, young white man knew intimately his music and understood him.
Sure.
And I think that was special for him and something he certainly remembered. So
absolutely,
that was one of my cool moments is being able to be buddies with James Brown.
Jimmy, you look at that. You say it was a cool moment. I look at it from a generation detached, but I still knew who he was. I mean, I remember, Saturday Night Live and Hot Tub and all that stuff. I mean, just really good. I mean, the guy did everything and he appealed to everybody. And those kind of interviews, They don't exist really anymore.
They don't exist, and they really never. There were not that many. I don't think there are that many, if any, regular interviews like this.
I can't think of any.
I don't think there's that many that just sat down with him in a dressing room in a calm situation with someone who he's not worried about.
Right.
Because he knows I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
That he's got to be on defense. So he's totally relaxed.
Yeah.
And he felt like opening up, which he did about Prince and other things like that. When if you go to the YouTube where this is at Ask Jimmy Carter's YouTube site, people get all in a wad because they're these nutty Prince fans.
Yeah, sure.
Out there, and they're just so protective of anything involving Prince. And James Brown, he still holds the record, playing to 1 million people in Africa and all these places around the world that he played. You can find some of these concerts and even still pictures where he played Africa, Europe, Middle East, Far East. He was literally the king of soul around the world. At one point, the two most famous people in the world were Muhammad Ali and James Brown.
I believe that.
Because the black people knew him, the white people knew him, everybody knew him, and all over the world. And not many people could say that.
Unbelievable. That's what happens right here on Sweeping the Country, a special Vault edition. Jimmy Carter and James Brown up close and personal. Jimmy. Tune in next week for another edition of Sweeping the Country. Until then, I'm Derik Walker, and he is
Jimmy.